Okay, Mr. Elephant. Now that Valentine's Day is over, I think I can get back to the story that we were doing. But I'm going to start all over just so it's a good story just for you. Yes. And you out there in TV world or YouTube world or whatever you want to call it. But yes, for you too. Okay, where were we? Brother and sister bear who lived with Mama and Papa in a big tree house down a sunny dirt road deep in bear country looked quite a lot alike. Except for the fact that brother was a boy cub and sister was a girl cub. They were alike in many ways, and even though they each had hobbies, brother loved to build and fly model airplanes. Sister had all sorts of special interests. They enjoyed many of the same things: bike riding, baseball, soccer, frisbee, and just getting out and enjoying nature. Well, they are bears, so I would hope they enjoyed nature. Oh, a butterfly. I love butterflies. Yes, I'm falling off you. I'm sorry, Mr. Elephant. Yes, brother and sister were a lot alike in many ways, but in some important ways they were different. Brother Bear was cautious and careful, and a little wary of strangers. Sister, on the other hand, wasn't at least bit wary. She was friendly to a fault. Just about everybody that came her way got a big hello. Hello, butterfly. Hello, frog. Hello, Mr. Truck Driver. Hello, Mrs. Shopper. She's a little too friendly. Brother worried about sister's free and easy way with strangers. Strangers weren't a problem for him. Not talking to strangers suited cautious and careful brother just fine. But friendly to a fault sister was different. She talked to everyone. Sister said, brother, you're going to have to stop that. Stop what? She asked, talking to strangers. It's just not a good idea. Why? She wanted to know why. Shouldn't I talk to strangers? What harm is there in it? Is there something wrong with strangers? Said brother, thinking about it for a minute. Those aren't questions for a brother. Those are for Mama and Papa. Sister Bear, I'm glad you asked those questions, said Papa, in this deepest and most serious voice. So I guess it would be like, Sister Bear, I'm glad you asked those questions, said Papa in his deepest and most serious voice. The reason you should never talk to a stranger, and never ever take presents from a stranger, and never, ever, ever go anywhere with a stranger, is that it's dangerous. What's dangerous about it? She asked, wide-eyed. What can happen? Oh dear, thought Mama Bear. I do hope Papa can tell Sister about strangers without making everything scary. It can be scary, but you know what? It can also be very helpful. All sorts of things, said Papa. Here, look at the newspaper. As she looked at it, her eyes got wider and wider. Stranger brother's cub. Missing cub found. Chief Grizzly questions stranger. Cub safety meeting. I hope you're paying attention to all of this, called Papa to Brother Bear. Yes, Papa, said Brother, looking up from his airplanes. Brother is a little older, so he already knew about strangers, but it is always good to be cautious about strangers. When Sister asked for a bedtime story that evening, Papa said, Of course, I have just the one. It was an old book that Papa had kept since he was a cub. The story was called Silly Goose with Wily Fox. It told how Silly Goose got into a conversation with Wily Fox. And before Silly knew quite what was happening, she found herself in Wiley's lair. This is how the story ended. Then there was a snip and a snap, and all that was left of Silly Goose was a few floating feathers and a smile on the face of Wily Fox. Sister had a hard time falling asleep that night. Her mind was filled with those headlines. There was even one that said Silly Goose missing Wily Fox questioned. The sound of Brother Bear's peaceful breathing finally lured her to sleep. The next day dawned bright and friendly to everybody but Sister. She had spent the restless night, and when she looked out the window, everything seemed a little strange. The trees seemed to reach for her, an owl stared at her, and the crows glared. "Let's go out and ride our bikes on the village green," said Brother after breakfast, but Sister didn't want to. Brother was puzzled. The green was a bright, busy, friendly place where she loved to play. Well, how about some soccer? But she didn't want to do that either. It wasn't until he suggested Frisbee, her favorite game, that she agreed to go along. "I like Frisbee too. You go whoosh, and the Frisbee goes whoosh, then you go whee." Before they left, they told Mama where they'd be. It was a family rule that they never went anywhere without telling Mama and Papa. "That is a good rule, and you should always do that. Always tell your mommy and daddy where you're gonna be and who you're gonna be with." "That's fine," said Mama. "I'm on my way to Farmer Ben's for apples. I'll stop by for you on the way home." "I love apples." The village green was the same bustling place it had always been. This was what it looked like to everyone but Sister. This is what it looked like to her. Today, even the frogs and butterflies seemed mean and scary to Sister. And you know what? I'm going to show you this because you need to see this. See the top? The top is what Brother sees. And the bottom, right down there, the bottom was what Sister sees. Because Sister's scared now. Later, when somebody tapped her on the shoulder, she jumped a mile even though it was just Mama. "Yipe!" "How was everything at the village green?" asked Mama on the way home in the car. Sister sat in front with Mama, and Brother rode in the back with the barrel of apples. I would want to eat those." "All right, I guess," said Sister. But there were so many strangers. Later at home, when Mama and Sister were getting ready to make applesauce— "I like applesauce too." Mama said, "You know what Papa told you was quite right. It's not good idea to talk to strangers or accept presents or rides from them." But she continued, "That doesn't mean that all strangers are bad. Why, chances are there wasn't a single person on that green that would harm a fly, much less a fine little cub like you. The trouble is, well, it's like this barrel of apples. There's an old saying that goes, there'll always be a couple of bad apples in every barrel. That's the way it is with strangers. Cubs have to be careful because of a few bad apples." "Look," said Sister, "I found one. It's all bumpy and has a funny shape." "Looks like a pepper." "But Mama's bear's right. Not everybody is a stranger, and there's not bad strangers out there. Some people are good, but you have to be with your parents, and you have to ask your parents about people. Because like Mama said, there's a few bad apples in every barrel, and we don't want no one to get hurt." "Well, it certainly is strange looking," said Mama, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. You can always tell from the outside which are the bad apples. She cut it in half. See, she said, it's fine inside. Now, here's one that looks fine on the outside, but inside, it's all wormy. Ugh, said sister. What's up? Asked brother. A bad apple, said sister. Double yug, said brother. Hey, I'm going to the meadow to fly my new pusher plane. Want to come? Sure, sister said. I can pick some wildflowers. She felt much better now, more like her old friendly self. That's good. I missed her old friendly self. I would be sister's friend. The pusher plane was a great success, and the cubs were about to head home when someone drove into the meadow with a big, beautiful orange and green meadow airplane. Wait, said brother, I want to watch. It's a radio-controlled job. Sister went back to picking wildflowers, but before she knew it, brother was talking to the stranger, for that's what he was, a stranger, no matter how big and beautiful his radio-controlled job was. She dropped her wildflowers and ran over to them. She means business. I'm going to send it up and follow in the car, the stranger was saying. Want to come along? Wow, said brother, and he would have if sister hadn't grabbed his arm and said, Don't you dare. The stranger drove off following his airplane, and sister ran home shouting, Brother talked to a stranger, brother talked to a stranger. Sister was exactly right. You never, ever, ever get into the car with a stranger. Never. And always have a safe word if you're being picked up from school. That way, if someone different picks you up and they know the safe word, then it's okay to go with them. But you make sure your parents tell you first that someone else is picking you up from school. Never get in the car with a stranger. If you don't know them, they're a stranger. But it was a big orange and green radio-controlled job, said brother. That doesn't matter, said Papa. Let's do Papa voice. But it was a big orange and green radio-controlled job, said brother. That doesn't matter, said Papa. We have rules about strangers, and they're important. We have rules about tattletales, too, said brother, glaring at sister. Grrr. Sister wasn't tattling. Tattling is telling just to be mean, explained Mama. And sister was telling because she loves you and was worried. Do you think that fellow was a bad apple? Asked brother. Probably not, said Mama. But it still is not a good idea. You do not know them. You do not go. That's right, said sister. Most folks are friendly and nice and wouldn't hurt a fly. But you have to be careful just in case. Speaking of apples, said Mama, how about some of this applesauce I just made? As they sat having a dish of Mama's delicious applesauce, brother and sister thought about what they had learned that day. There was quite a lot to think about. For brother and sister's rules for cubs, turn the page. Brother and sister bears rules for cubs. Never talk to strangers. Never take candy or other gifts from strangers. Never ever go anywhere with a stranger. Don't keep secrets from your parents, especially if someone asks you to. That's the biggest one of all right there. Never keep a secret. If an adult tells you to keep a secret from your parents, you must tell your parents. It's for your safety. Use your common sense. We can't have rules for everything. Common sense is what keeps us safe by telling us what to do in situations that are not covered by rules. That is a very good rule. Always use your common sense. My common sense right now is telling me it's late and I need to go to bed. So Mr. Elephant fell asleep. Do you hear him snoring? Yeah, see, he's snoring. So he's ready for bed. I'm going to go to bed now. So good night, everybody. Thank you for listening to my story. And I hope you all do not talk to strangers. Night, everybody. Mwah.